Welcome to Flip Your Lid with Kim Honeycutt. Kim is a psychotherapist and executive director of ICU Talks, a mental health speaking ministry. This is a podcast about how to flip your lid and learning how to reconnect to who you really are.
All right, listeners, thank you. Those of you on YouTube watching us, hi, and those of you listening through the podcast, so good to have you here. I got a sister with me today. I got a friend with me today. She's a professional, but she's also just a very personable person, and you're going to experience that. Her name is Dr. MelissaTate-Scruse.
That's it. Good job.
All right, I did it. She's a thriving mental health professional with a multitude of practical experiences within the public and private domains of behavioral health for over 15 years, but she looks 12. That's very confusing. Her experience working with emotionally unstable children, adolescents, adults, and disrupted families set the foundation for her career and professional wit. She now owns and operates a group mental health practice, Cohesive Counseling Associatives, that's in Charlotte, North Carolina, serving clientele of all ages, including our American veterans. God bless them. She is well-versed in anxiety, depression, trauma, grief, loss, substance abuse, anger management, and a whole lot more. She's additionally licensed supervision, has an extensive background in counselor education, psychological consultation, and public speaking. Melissa is a 3-time author writing about various topics from domestic violence, substance abuse, and the journey of self-care from a mental health perspective. She's also transitioned one chapter of her first book into a short film called Tony, which is now available worldwide via Amazon Video on Demand. Tony, which if you're looking for, it's going to be THONY 2.0. Tony's Eyes will be released this year in 2021. You can also just go to our website, which is drmetate.com for more information. So that's drmetate.com. We'll have that in our show notes as well, because there's a lot to learn about her. And so, Melissa. Hey,
Melissa.
Girl, hey.
Yes.
So I know you're professional, but I also know you have a personality, and that you and I love to joke with each other, have a good time, and go out in the world and just really explain to people, particularly about Black mental health and about domestic violence and so many things. And so I know you're going to enrich the lives of all those who are listening today. So thank you for being here.
God willing. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So here you are on Flip Your Lid. So you know the first question. It's the only thing we know is going to happen. Outside of that, we're just like, right. So here's the first question. Just think about this. Tell us a little bit about, in your life, what flipped your lid, disconnected you from who God says you are, and what measures have you had to take to be able to reconnect to who you really are?
And how much time did you say we have?
Let's have the first question less than 15 minutes. How about that?
So, situations that have flipped my lid. There's been numerous and many, but the most pivotal that I would say, which was, of course, the subject of the first book that I wrote and the movie, was domestic violence relationship. But it's not just that relationship. I would say unhealthy relationships in general have flipped my lid.
Yeah.
Because in the book, I talk about other relationships that I've had that definitely disconnected me from who I believed I was and who I have learned who I am in Christ. Mm-hmm. So it's been a double identity crisis, I would say. In the aftermath and re-examining some of the unhealthy relationships that I've had in my life. Mm-hmm. And just because I'm a therapist and trained in psychology, it doesn't make me immune to some of the difficulties of this world and the, unhealthy relationships that I've been in. But that is the short answer to what has flipped my lid.
Well, just the last part of what you said, I got to tell you, I'm a little bit on fire, maybe just a little match.
Let's do it.
About just because we are in this field, we're supposed to have perfect behavior, perfect thoughts, perfect words, and that we are not immune at all to being abused by our patients, being abused by boyfriends, by husbands, wives, whatever, those of you listening that are therapists. I'm really recently getting really fed up to hear with this idea that we're supposed to know what to do in every situation.
Listen, and that is so pivotal a conversation today, because just as we are helping professionals, helping people get through a pandemic and political tension and racial, uproars and, any sort of financial distress that is upon people because of all of the above. We too are going through a pandemic, and we too are going through changes in our industry, and we too are going through racial tensions and different things. And so we are allowed, can I just say it to the people? Listen, helping professionals, we are allowed to feel how we feel as well. We are allowed to be upset and angry and frustrated and cry and want to cuss and want to fuss and want to fight. We are allowed that space as well. We can't always have a dignified hat of poise and rationality.
There you go. Well said. Well said.
We cannot always be poised and rational. We have the right to express and experience how we authentically feel as well. And that's what makes us better helping professionals, because we can identify with that.
So let's talk about this. And this is two separate things. I won't go into great detail, but one, I was recently verbally attacked. I thought I was going to be physically attacked in my office within the past week and a half.
Gosh.
And so that's part of why my frustration is so much about us being professionals. Like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle it besides trying to de-escalate a borderline personality type, right?
And that's all you can do.
So, but the other thing is I've had many people come in my office, and I know that they only know what they know, but they are saying things that are vehemently against who I am as a woman, a person, someone who is Latina, and having to figure out how do you navigate when people are saying things that contribute to where we are right now with racial tension.
Yeah,
so talk about that,
so
please.
Good. Yeah, that's so good. So, first and foremost, the easiest, most rational answer is their stuff is their stuff. And our job as the clinician is to not personalize it, right? So even though you're the vessel that is receiving all of that, mess or rhetoric or, unfair language or behavior or whatever, is really not about you as a person, right? But it doesn't nonetheless make it feel good to have all of that on your plate. And so I think you did, like I said, that's all you can do is de-escalate and, kind of, keep it peaceful in the session as much as possible. But then after that, authentically go into a place where you can process what just happened. How do I feel about it? What do I need to shed, not allow it to attach to me or attach to who I am as a person, as a woman, as a therapist, as a Latina? How do I, shed what was just dumped all over me and not allow it to attach to my spirit?
Right. Absolutely. And it's just really true. Like, how I handle it is reflection of me, but the person attacking me or making the comments about how Black people should act when they get pulled over, all the things being said, that is completely representative of them. The struggle comes in when it's not viewed that way, right? Like, we have to be able to really get it, that it really is separate, but that my office has got to be a safe place for you and me. I'm included in that safety.
Yeah. That's so good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Because I think a lot of people will give up the space for others in this very self-sacrificing fashion and then lose sight of where they all of a sudden feel uncomfortable doing their own job.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's really, really good. And so for you, like, you and I have done some Instagram lives and things about just talking about, what, brown and Black sisters are going through, people of color are going through, what, immigrants are going through. Because, my mother's an immigrant, like just talking openly about that. And so if we can kind of jump into that for a second, and then I want to go back to what you personally experienced with domestic violence, but just to be current for a second, can you talk a little bit about, it's what a lot of people call Black self-care. Right. Especially in this time.
Yeah, it's been an interesting space, right? It's been an interesting space. I've seen the gamut from extremely angry, ready to fight, fussing and cussing to, the proactive, how do we do this? How do we advocate? And then I've seen the complete shutdown to, I can't take any more. I'm just gonna, curl up in bed and go to sleep today.
Right.
So I've seen the gamut across, mental health for people of color, and just watching this nation unfold. I think my people are really good at using humor to get through some uncomfortable things. And so on social media, you'll see all sorts of memes and you'll see all sorts of, kind of jokes trying to implore some comic relief.
Right.
And so that we don't, you laugh before you cry, you laugh before you go all the way crazy, right? And you have that gift as well, just being able to take a traumatic, very difficult situation and just hinge it right next to something that will just make you laugh because you need the laughter.
That's right.
But it's been an interesting time, and I myself have hit every space and time of that, and there's been times where I just can't. I don't feel like it today, and I'm just gonna not watch the news. I did not watch the insurrection. I did not watch that in real time. I saw it play out through Facebook posts and memes or social media posts and memes until I actually sat and watched the news and kind of researched it for myself, and that's my way of just monitoring what I take in.
Sure.
Which I think is a tremendous self-care piece.
Yes.
Is really to be purposeful about the information that you take in through this season, through this year.
Right.
Really.
Right. Yeah. 100% for that. And again, not letting people shame you, because people will say, well, you can't be ignorant to it. There's no way, Melissa, you're ignorant to any of it. You can't be. Your life depends on it, how you teach your children about anything, but particularly about race relations, what's happening within the government, all that. It doesn't mean you don't need a break.
Right. I need a moment. I need a moment to process it, even at my own space and time. And, so there was a post you may or may not be aware of. The APA, which is the American Psychiatric Association, released a statement about, and I almost probably should read it because I don't want to misstate, but basically the statement was, we now realize that the mental health field and psychiatry has been biased towards people of color.
Wow. Yes.
Oh, you're just now realizing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it took a little while.
And now what? Now that you realize it, now what? And so it was a social media post from Black Therapist Rock, which is a dynamic group of therapists across the country. And they posted it. And I was like, I don't have a response yet. Like, I don't even know how to feel about this right now. And that was how I responded. Interesting. I don't know how to respond quite yet. And I left it at that, but I still don't. I still don't really fully understand what that means.
Yeah, I love that, and I hear that. I love how authentic you are in that. I got to tell you, like I've been sober through a 12-step program for a long time, but I recently learned this. I knew about women not being allowed in AA. As a woman, I knew that, but I just learned it was until the 1960s that the first Black man, not woman, but Black man, was allowed in meetings. And Melissa, I could cry telling you this, but he could only come when the meeting started, and he had to leave immediately when it was over. And I was taught from day one that the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting can be more important than the actual meeting, because that's where you learn how to socialize. That's where you...
with others.
Right. That's where you learn who you want your sponsor to be a lot of times. That's where you start realizing how to be socially okay, instead of having to always have a drink. Like people always go to Starbucks, all that kind of stuff. So, and then it talked about that eventually he stuck with it, stayed sober, and was able to be friends with Dr. Bob, who's one of the first, or something about that, or somebody of influence, and was able to speak at conferences and conventions, for AA conventions. And I was thinking, so you're writing that as if it's a privilege he got to speak. Like, he couldn't even be completely a part of a 12-step program. He's still sober, but it's a privilege. I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah, I don't have a response. That's mind blowing, by the way. Thank you for that information.
Yeah,
I had no idea, never even thought about it.
Yeah.
Like, how is this not a right?
Right.
Like,
so we're there's certain things that have happened drug wise in certain communities, and yet we're not availing them to 12-step programs, which are proven effective for most people. Right. It's just mind blowing.
Right.
Yeah.
Flip your lid.
Both of us got our lips flipped today, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really true. Yeah. So let's go back a little bit and talk about what it's been like for you to, again, be a woman of high emotional intellect and still end up in a situation. Because, again, part of being a good person means that we don't understand when someone is toxic and mistreating us. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was 22 years old, fell in love with a gentleman who was definitely in love with me. But I come to learn and realize that he was in love with me probably more than he was in love with himself. And truly, that's what I see at the essence of very unhealthy, toxic relationships is there's no individuation. There's no individual identity among the two parties.
Right.
And so then when they come together as a couple, that becomes the new identity, and one or both people lose themselves in that process.
Wow. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yes, there you are.
Yeah, we froze for a second. Yeah.
It's for a moment.
Yeah. So part of it means being 22 years old, not having a complete sense of self.
Yeah.
Right. Which has a lot to do with knowing your emotional needs. You just knew, enamored, very attracted to this man. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so, I can make the excuse I was 22, I could say that. But of course, in just doing the soul searching, you realize, well, what was it about me? Because that was my process. I had more than enough reason to blame him, be upset with him, be mad at him, say he's crazy, he's this, he's that, right? I could throw whatever I wanted in there, and I had justification to do so. Right. But at the end of the day, I had to do some self-reflection about what is it about me that I was in that situation. Right. And then some years later got into another situation, not physically abusive or as emotionally, or psychologically abusive, but certainly just as difficult to be in a marriage and partnership with someone who had an alcohol addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
That absolutely. Is just as emotional, that flipped my lid just as much to see this very professional, very handsome, very, educated man be at such vulnerability to alcohol. Right. It was like, how? Like, what? Like, it again flipped my lid all over the place. Yeah. So, but again, had to self-reflect. What is it about me that I am in these situations, and what is it that I need to do? What is it that I need to understand about myself and about my propensity for taking a liking to this degree of unhealthiness, this degree of brokenness in a man. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anything in particular you found out about your hardwiring, childhood stuff related to gravitating towards someone who is not available for you?
Not a thing. It's like, I'm just kidding. I learned 1,000 things. I'm still learning 1,000 things. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a family member who has struggled with addiction for as long as I can remember. And so I think at the heart of it all, I have this desire to see someone from a healed perspective. That even in their struggle, they can heal and be better and live happily ever after. Yeah. So I think that was in me. I think seeing my parents in a very loving relationship as middle school sweethearts. I really kind of thought love was easy and had no idea. Yeah. I'd never even seen my parents have a tremendous argument. Never saw them. So I think I thought that, you fall in love and then it's easy. You're with your friend forever. So there was definitely some naivete on my part about what it took to be in a relationship, and from a perspective of codependency, because I felt like I had a great sense of personal identity and I felt like I knew myself very well. And then once you partner with someone who doesn't know themselves very well and isn't as emotionally drained, you fall to their level. You get pulled down to that level of unhealthiness. And so, I learned your healthy relationship is only as healthy as the healthy people in it. So
very much.
Your relationship is only as healthy as the people in it. So if either one of the individuals has a degree of unhealthiness, then that's what weights you. That's what anchors you. That's what is the foundation of the relationship. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So if one of your links is struggling with addiction or mental illness or physical illness or something, it can be financial distress. It could be, poor money management, whatever it is, the relationship is going to be the manifestation of that weakness.
Yeah, absolutely. I was taught, tell me if you agree with this, that, a lot of what happens has to do obviously with our attachment style, right? And so, traditionally, if you have what's called a dismissive or a preoccupied attachment and you date someone who has an avoidant attachment, which means one person craves connection, the other has fear of connection. That's the most common. And so for a little while, you're on the same path. And then all of a sudden, there's some split. There's something that happens that the person that you're with doesn't seem like the person that you knew. And if you stay curious, that's one path. If it gets critical, that's a really different path, right?
Yeah.
So putting that out there, I've been told that any of us have the potential, no matter how good our childhood was, to actually end up with an abuser.
Absolutely. And I had to learn that about myself because I was in such a, and this is your wheelhouse, a spiral of shame. I was really ashamed that I had even gotten in that relationship because I'm like, why? There was no reason in my mind as to why I ended up in that type of relationship, because it just didn't mesh with the identity that I had for myself. But yes, absolutely. We all have the propensity to be in that type of relationship.
Sure.
And, we can look from the outside in and say, I would never, ever, ever. But when you're in it, there's some investment in some sort of way that pulls you in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes back to that if your tendency, and it could be from a place of health, it could be a fawning response, it could be unhealthy, but if your tendency is to take care of someone else, be there for their need, be aware of their need, you're not thinking that the person coming towards you doesn't care about you and is only self-serving, because you wouldn't do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yes, we displace what we would do. We displace that and attach that to someone else's style.
Yeah.
And that's, not always true.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things. I wish there was a class about this, like in 6th grade on, of that the lens you look through are not the lens the person you're talking to is looking through or hearing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't know how to converse. We don't know how to talk.
We don't.
Yeah.
We don't. And we don't. And often we don't even realize that the lens we're looking through is I was supposed to say different, but that just rephrased what you said. But we don't even realize that our lens is colored a certain sort of way. Right. Yeah. We don't realize that we all have different perspectives and ways of being that contribute to the conflict and the tensions that we have amongst each other.
Right. Yeah. I think even when people start, talking about marriage, and like they'll come into my office and I'll say, have you defined wife and husband? They're like, what?
Yeah.
You might have very different, like both of you need to define wife, both of you need to define husband. I've never had when I've done that it was the same. I've never had anybody write the same thing, right?
That's
and
good.
So, yeah, without people talking about that, like they're thinking, I'm meeting my job description. Well, no, that's not.
Yeah. Did you even know what you signed up for?
Right.
Like,
you
didn't know
right.
his idea of wife. Yep. And now you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. Now you're in. And again, for those of us in the church, we'll get shamed if we try to get out of that or we'll take on too much blame about what's happening within the marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. That's so good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So how did the church play into it for you? With relationships and then the beautiful marriage you're in now? Like, have you been shamed within the church? Have you found acceptance in the church?
I found amazing acceptance in the church. I thank God for my pastor and co-pastor who of Have Life Church, who are counselors at heart. Mm-hmm. And they want everybody to do better, feel better, be better people. And so no. And by the time I came to the church, I was divorced, single mother, just, really seeking some solace. I was just seeking a safe place, I think, and felt really understood in my pastor's messaging of soul searching and personal identity and finding who you are in Christ and defining what that means and knowing who you are as an individual person. And so I found confirmation. When I got to the church. For a while, I felt like a foreign body. Wow. I was like, why am I the only one who seems to I really felt foreign. Like I felt like I was a single person who just was the only person who understood integrity and understood love and understood honesty and really very old school ideas of love. And I'm like, I don't understand why this is so hard. I don't get it. Right. So I found confirmation when I first started going to Have Life Church.
So glad.
And my husband was, who was not my husband at the time, but he found a safe place there as well as he was going through divorce. And the stars aligned and we met each other and there at the church.
Right.
And it's been a beautiful union with the blessing of my pastor, co-pastor. They continue to pour into us, love on us. It's been a blessing.
Well, it's been a blessing to watch.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, you've seen it, right?
It's a ministry. You're a ministry just by being yourselves and being so open about the fact that you've been divorced and God never loved you differently. And what does it mean now to be, it's just, and plus he's creative and, all that's just been amazing.
Oh, he owns that.
Yeah.
No, it's been a real blessing and to have a partner in Christ and we know that our ministry is marriage first and how we've been able to blend our families and continue to serve together. And, one of the things that I'm passionate about when talking to couples who, kind of come to us from the church or come to me from the church is, my husband and I have separate ministries, but we also minister together, know? And so if ever I was jealous of his ministry or he jealous of mine, it would really be a problem because we serve the Lord so passionately. And we love God's people so passionately that it would be a problem if we didn't respect the God in each other and allow our individual ministries to be what they are.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And that reminds me, of the triangle where God's at the top and, your name's here and Anthony's on the other side. And the closer you get to God, the closer you get to each other.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Right. Like it's so visual for me that's what you're actually, are doing. And you're so right about the ministries are apart, but yet they bring you together. And that doesn't just come. You have to have spiritual maturity.
Yeah, absolutely. And with spiritual maturity is emotional maturity.
Yep.
And so I've come in recent years and you and I partner in this space of mental health as a ministry.
Right.
As, it is purposeful in getting to that spiritual actualization that, closer to God and really kind of understanding what he has for us, what he wants for us. It comes from that emotional maturity process.
Yeah, that's That's right. That's
And
right.
so I thank God that that was growing in him before we even came together. Like that is in essence a beautiful thing. As he was working on him, I was working on me, and we found each other in a healthy space. Right. So neither one of us had to feel a void for each other. We were filling our own void in God, in Christ, in, our emotional maturity. And we found each other in a healthy space.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Do you have some practical applications or things that you experienced internally or even externally? Because, for those who have been abused, to date again.
Oh, child.
The fear of that, to try to look for something different without being overreactive. Right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that and how difficult that is?
I don't know if I can talk about it. So, it was a process. Let me be clear. So again, I was 22 years old when I met and married, or, when I married my first husband and went through that very abusive situation. I'm 44 years old now. Yeah. So I am 22 years removed, physically and emotionally removed from that very toxic situation. And in the process, I continue to have some unhealthy relationships here and there. It may not have been physically abusive, but it wasn't healthy, or it wasn't good, or it didn't serve my best interest. It didn't cater to my heart. And so I went through periods of celibacy and soul searching and just really trying to understand who I was. Some periods where I really just needed to focus on being a good mom, stop worrying about being somebody's girlfriend, somebody's wife, and just worry about being a good person and being a good mom or being a good sister or being a good daughter. Sometimes we overshoot because of our heart's desire to love. We find somebody in a space where we're not fully whole. Right. My pastor smacked me in the face with this one some years ago when I first started going to Half Life Church. We date from our level of revelation.
Say it again. Say it again.
Listen.
I can feel the Holy Spirit. Say it again.
Yes. We date and choose a partner according to our level of revelation. So if you are here with your level of revelation, not even knowing how amazing and beautiful and powerful and smart and whole you are, your dating pool is down here with everybody else.
Right.
When your revelation increases in who you are and knowing the Spirit of God that resides in you and the Holy Spirit that resides in you, and know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made and that you can make mistakes and that the God loves you still, then you allow yourself a different space of grace and allowing yourself not to be ashamed and allowing yourself to just be authentically who God created you to be. Your dating pool is up here. Evil spirit, not down here with the bottom feeders. You are increasing, elevating yourself, elevating your understanding of who you are. Yeah.
That's so good. And with that, and part of me saying this is that I just did a talk this week about this is, and actually I talk about this a lot, and that is one of the things the enemy doesn't want us to do is receive. Because the depth of relationship is based on receiving.
That's good.
Right? Relationship with the Lord starts with receiving his love, receiving our salvation, receiving.
That's good.
So the more you receive, the more you have revelation. Right?
Yes.
So if we're shamed for trying to receive our emotional needs being met, if we're shamed for trying to receive love, grace, anything, and we don't let it come in, we will date from there.
Yes, absolutely. That's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. That one, it's still, that one statement from my pastor, 7 years ago, still does not leave me.
Yeah.
It still does not leave me.
Yeah. And to be with Anthony, be dating him, and I'm sure being cautious and yet not wanting to feed the fear, but still needing like that balance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wrote in the second book, Blessed Passenger, and I kind of write about dating from a kingdom perspective because that was new for me. Not really having God in my life previously, not to the degree that I that I do now, of course, but really going through this different dating perspective as I was dating someone who was also wanting the love of God and trying to redeem himself and walk a sanctified life. But that so there were some fears that came up, like, oh no, like, is this real? Like, is this really happening? So there was definitely some fears that, and some trepidation that set in, and the confirmation that I got from God through that process was really amazing. It had all sorts of little, weird spiritual awakenings through it. But what I like to say is the God in me fell in love with the God in him. And that's what is kind of keeping us together. And because I trust the God in him, I can be, wholly and authentically a helpmate. There's this theory that brown women like me don't like to submit, don't like that word submission.
Oh, yeah.
There's a whole discussion about this word submission, but it is really easy to submit when you trust what is leading your husband.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, I will tell you, even though unfortunately I don't look brown, and I wish I did, I accept
you
that I don't.
You are brown on the inside. We are the same color on the inside.
On the inside, we're so the same color that the word submission for me is almost a trauma response. It's almost nauseating.
Yeah.
And so I know for you, with your background, it had to be some work to submit. But I love that, like, you trusted the God in him and you could follow him. But the idea of submission, when it comes to 400 years ago slavery, when it comes to how you have to act in certain environments so that the white person doesn't get upset with you.
Absolutely.
All of that plays in for you.
Yes, that psychological construct of how submission, godly submission, was misused.
Yes, misused.
How it's been misconstrued to us and delivered to us. And even from just a woman's perspective of having to submit to a man sounds very archaic.
So archaic.
But that's not God's intention. It wasn't God's intention. And so really understanding what the word submission means. My pastor breaks it down so beautifully. Sub meaning under, mission meaning plan, vision, so you are under the mission and plan that your husband is setting for.
Right. But I love that. I think that's amazingly said. Do you feel like he's under, or would it be more like for you saying he's beside the mission that you have?
We are in this mission together. Yeah. And I think when you get married, it's what's the mission? Oh, the mission is X, Y, and Z. Okay, I can get under that.
Yeah.
I can fall in the line. Then let's be clear. We submit to a bunch of things we don't necessarily like. So we submit to our job. We submit to our, employers. Right. We submit to, we submit to
the
all
speed limit.
Yes. Are you a lead foot?
Girl, you know what I drive. I fly around this place. But I try to behave. I don't want to go back to jail. I try to behave.
Yes. So we submit to all sorts of things, but in marriage, marital submission, it's does the man, and that's choosing the mate. Choosing the mate that has the right mission for you.
That's
if he can't state the mission, why are you going to get under it?
Yeah. That's right.
So,
I love that.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said. What kind of wife are you looking for? What is wife? What is definition of wife?
That's right. That's good. That's really good.
What is definition of marriage? What does that mean? What does that look like? What does Monday through Sunday? What do you think your marriage is going to look like?
That's so good. That's so good. How did your kids respond to meeting Anthony?
They were so funny because I was dating Anthony and kind of like trying to make sure that we were right before I introduced him to the girls. And so they knew I was dating someone, late night phone calls, mom's giggling a lot more, all this stuff, right? And they knew I was dating someone from the church, but they had no idea who. So they were like little Inspector Gadgets trying to figure out who it was. And so we all look back at that time and laugh. Because he and I used to sit in the car and talk for hours. Yeah. And one time he left his hat in the car and I didn't know it was there. And he was like, I can't find my hat. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And my daughter gets in the car one day and she puts on the hat and it's like, Mom, do you have something to tell me? She was about 8 or 9 years old at the time, and it just laid me out. Like I just cracked up.
Right.
So funny. So just little things like that made it, fun and exciting. But when they met him, And he was the father of daughters. He knows how to parent daughters, love daughters. And so it was like puzzle pieces.
Now,
like
for you, because you and I both are daddy girls, right? Like being a daddy's girl is the best. And I know you recently lost your dad. I'm so sorry, but you spoke so well at ICU Talks.
Thank you so
there's
much.
So much freedom in what you shared. And
God be the glory.
But I'm sure that solidified things for you because you're a daddy's girl and you watched him with your daughters.
Yes, that was so important to me. And I won't say that I was looking for that, but it certainly gives you peace of mind when you're thinking about, as a single mother, how am I going to find a man that loves me and loves my girls?
Right.
And then you see him love his girls and you're like, okay, I see what you did there, guys.
I see what you did there.
There, guy. And I, was like, I can't believe I'm about to be the mother of 5 girls. That's not very funny, Lord. Lord and Savior. That's not funny. But it's been an amazing journey.
Wow, that's so good.
Awesome. We are almost 5 years married and 6 years together. And the blending of our families have really been a beautiful thing. So
and then for our listeners, year 7, a lot of people don't make it from past year 2 to year 7. There's something very significant that happens when you get past year 7, and that's part of the 7-year itch people talk about, because by that point, all the new things in relationship are done. Like, it's about being committed to each other, and so just knowing like what a ministry you already are, and that I just know it's going to continue in that.
Absolutely.
And that you're not going to be a statistic.
No,
not in a negative way. Yeah.
Listen, and God and I had a good old talk when Anthony came into my life, because I said, God, I don't want to be divorced again. And he said, you're not going to get married again. So it was a confirmation to me that this marriage was going to see the test of time. God gave me that covenant message.
This was the last marriage.
That this was the last marriage.
Yeah.
And so if you think about that, I was already thinking about the imminent demise. I don't want to be divorced again. And he's like, no. This is your, you'll never get married.
You're having a trauma response, and God's saying, you're going to have a God response.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you better preach it, girl.
Preach. Yeah. Preach it all.
Preach.
Speaking of that, one way that you are preaching is through your movie, right? Through your books and your movie. I'd love to hear, because that's a really big deal. You did it quickly. And if I remember correctly, it happened right before COVID happened.
Yes.
So I'd love, please tell our audience about that.
So we filmed the movie in November of 2019. And we did a filming weekend. It was a whole campaign around domestic violence awareness, all of that fun stuff. And so we were in the editing process, and January, February comes, we decide on a release date. We did a whole big movie premiere at the Studio Movie Grill here in Charlotte. Set the date. It was the first week of March. We did the opening, and then COVID shut us down like 2 weeks later. By the end of March, beginning of April, COVID was very much alive and well. And so we really had to shut it down. But the movie process was amazing. Again, a God gift of just an urging, an inkling. I think it hit in the most amazing way possible because, as you and I have discussed before, during COVID, domestic violence, incidents went up around the globe. The globe. So now all of a sudden people are in these abusive relationships and violent relationships, and they're stuck in the house with their abuser.
Tragic.
So around the globe, the numbers went through the roof. And I thank God the movie was, tangible, that I could do kind of movie showings virtually. Right. So all of a sudden our world had to convert to this virtual platform. Right. And the movie Tony was prevalent enough for me to be able to have these virtual showings with people and continue to have necessary conversations about domestic violence with people across the country. So that was really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. That is so good. And God is so good in that.
Listen,
it's just amazing. What do you see as a difference about how people react in the victim blaming with brown and black sisters versus, we'll just say white. I won't go through each ethnicity.
Yeah,
Right? Just brown versus white kind of thing. What have you noticed with your expertise with that?
Well, I would say it's similar but different.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's, with brown people, it's, the implication of drugs and alcohol and poverty and,
Right. That's right.
generational traumas even are thrown in there as if those don't exist in other, ethnicities as well. But I would say that's what makes it muddy and a place of perhaps judgment as opposed to the former, a non-white person.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And just to put out there, any woman, and some men deal with this too, I want to be really clear, but any woman I've dealt with, the system has been horrific for every woman.
Yeah.
Every race, age, socioeconomic, every woman I know has had to walk in that courtroom, even trying to get a 10-day restraining order.
I was just having that conversation with someone that I was like, I know people who have walked in the courtroom with black eyes, bumps and bruises and still couldn't get a restraining order, which is flips my lid, which is beside me. Just don't understand.
Right.
And a lot of times it turns into her word versus his word. And sometimes it's a money thing as far as attorneys and legalities.
Or just getting off work. Because the paperwork you have to do is extensive. And I know women who can't get up for work long enough to be a part of the process. And they're just trying to be safe, but they can't leave their job for more than an hour.
Yeah. It's scary. It's really scary.
It is. There's a lot wrong with the system. That's why I'm so grateful people like you are available. Your church Have Life. I think your Have Life is just on fire, and the things y'all do for people is just amazing. That when you see people who are truly the hands and feet, just because someone's a church or a Christian doesn't mean that they're hands and feet, and you so are. It's just so amazing.
That's so true. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think you and I fall into that same vein of just really being on fire for God. And I love the God in you, sis, just like I love
I love the God in you. And I love the fact that we can keep figuring out how to work together, how to keep doing this together. And so, because there's always a new message and a different message, but it's being added to the same message where we need people to know God loves you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And how do you receive that? How do you let that go to your wounded place so that we don't have to continue to sabotage, have toxic relationships, live small? Jesus didn't die for you to live small.
Yes. That's so good. That's so good.
All right, let's put you in the hot seat real quick.
Oh gosh.
All right. You're a therapist. You know what it's all about.
Comfy.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Let's do this. Okay. So this is just simple, silly stuff.
Okay.
Whatever comes to mind first for the first one. First word that comes to mind when you hear unbroken.
Ooh, freedom.
Yeah.
Unbroken. Yeah, that was the first word that came to mind. Freedom.
Yeah, that's good. That's what it's all about. We're set free to be free.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Right. Okay. If you could give yourself a new name, what would it be?
Oh God, that's hard. A new name. I have always, and this is my daughter's middle name, I have always loved the name Imani.
Imani.
It means faith in Swahili.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so that's the first one that came to mind, Imani.
Right. That's great. That's your new name. I like it.
I'm ready.
What has been your biggest surprise in life?
My biggest surprise in life. These are hard. I wasn't ready.
This is the hot seat. It's what we do to each other.
Jesus. Okay. My biggest surprise in life. I think that a sinner like me.
Yeah.
I have to laugh at myself.
Yeah.
my biggest surprise is like that a sinner like me can find so much freedom in loving God and speak it so authentically and real with no qualms.
Yeah.
That I am basking in his glory.
Yeah. Which goes back to being unbroken, right? Like
yes, which goes back to being unbroken. Like that is, and listen, that is a real response. A sinner like me.
Right.
And I'm laughing at my sins, honey.
Right. They can be free. Yeah. We are not our mistake. People want us to believe we are our mistake. We are not.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Besides your own, what is your favorite movie?
Ooh. Gosh, that's hard. So I have so many. I'm a movie person.
Okay.
So some of my favorites, I'll say, are Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
And I say that because I can watch it. I've seen it so many times, but I still really love the story. Forrest Gump. I love Malcolm X. I love The Color Purple.
Yes.
Some silly ones that make me laugh are Blended with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore.
Right.
That one just cracks me up. I like what else? Those are hard. Those are some of my favorites.
Okay, I love that. That is so great. Is there any show that you watch that you're embarrassed to say that you like?
Girl. That's so funny. I'm embarrassed to say I like some good ones. I'll say that. I do like some good ones, but I am embarrassed at the way in which I watch them. Like I just get so enthralled. My husband was laughing at me because I was crying. I was watching a show the other day and I was crying and he was like, really? So, but I'm a big fan of like Grey's Anatomy and This Is Us is amazing show. I am a Shonda Rhimes fan.
Listen, I'm still upset with her. I need to talk about this.
Ciao.
Grey's Anatomy, in love with Grey's Anatomy, in love with McDreamy, and she killed him. And I cried so hard that I haven't been able to watch I've never watched it again. I've never watched it
since then.
I can't because I was in love with him and he didn't have to die. He had 2 years left on his contract. What was Rhimes doing? What happened? I loved his hair. I wanted to touch his hair.
You wanted to touch his hair.
Yes. What happened?
So beautifully. Yeah. So that was very traumatizing. I have still watched it, but see, so my daughter burst out crying when Mark Sloan died. Burst out crying, came in the room and fell in my lap like Sloan is dead, and I was like, "What? Like what? Like what happened?" Like I really. So my husband laughs at us. Now I was watching Private Practice, which is a Grey's Anatomy spinoff with Addison Montgomery, and I was crying when Dell died, and so that my husband he just laughs at us. He laughs at us, but yeah. So I'm definitely a Shonda Rhimes fan. I have enjoyed Bridgerton. I watched Bridgerton. Yeah. On Netflix, that was great. I like The Walking Dead. And all of its spinoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So those are good too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Great answer. Okay. 2 more and we're done. Dream vacation. What's your dream vacation?
There's 2. Can I say 2?
Yeah.
Hawaii. I have not been yet to Hawaii and Australia. Those 2 are on the bucket list.
They're on the list.
Yes.
Okay, so you're perfect for your profession. You help so many people. But if you had to pick a different profession, what would you select?
Because I watch so much Grey's Anatomy, I truly believe I could be a surgeon.
That is the best answer ever. That is so great.
I think I can be a surgeon. I think I missed my calling because I ain't going to medical school. I'm not doing that. But I think I can be a surgeon.
I truly believe if I hadn't been so drunk, I might end up in med school. But I can't pronounce all the things they talk about. I would have been a horrible translator of all that. But I think I would have gone to med school. But
I think I'm supposed to be a surgeon of some kind. I don't know, the brain or something.
Yeah. Well, you are an emotional surgeon. You're spiritually a surgeon. You help so many people through that. You are such a blessing. I'm so glad you're in my life. Anything you want to throw out there for people, whether they want to follow you on Facebook, Instagram, your movie, your books, anything you want to throw out there real quick as we wrap up.
So there's a little bit of everything going on with me. So I released the third book this past year in the middle of a pandemic called Your Invitation to Self-Care. And I really excited this year. People have been contacting me about doing some self-care groups and like self-care sessions, so to speak. So I've got the first one of the year going in a couple of weeks where someone called me and said, I got a group of ladies and we want to get together. We want to read your book and then we want to do a self-care session where we can Q&A and talk about it and, have brunch on Zoom and do it all. So I'm excited to do that and certainly open to do that with others. So I throw that out there. You can always find me on Instagram and Facebook. The second movie, Tony 2.0, will be released this year in 2021. And that looks at Tony's backstory. This is Tony's backstory because I never sought out to vilify the abuser. They are broken just like the abused. And I really want to tell a version of that story. What is the backstory of the abuser? Where did this even come from?
Oh, that's brilliant.
I feel that is a really powerful conversation that isn't had often.
That's brilliant. I love that.
It isn't had often.
Listen, and I love you. Thank you. I know how busy you are for taking time to be a part of this. You're amazing. I love you. All right, listeners, I know your lid got flipped at least 3 times. Had to. 3 is a great number. So thank you for being a part of this. We hope that you heard something today that helps you reconnect to who you really are. Please remember, you are not your mistake. You are God's child. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing.
Thank you for listening to Flip Your Lid with Kim Honeycutt. Please subscribe, rate, and share. You can find Kim on Facebook or Instagram at KB Honeycutt. To get an autographed copy of Kim's book, visit butyourmotherlovesyou.com. Remember, no matter what, treat yourself well today.